CENTCOM confirmed the extraction at 0200 local time on April 12th. U.S. Delta Force had successfully extracted a senior Iranian general from inside Iranian territory. The confirmation came in a single paragraph. The operation had been executed. The subject was in U.S. custody. The identity would not be confirmed publicly at this time. What that single paragraph described was the most consequential special operations extraction in the history of the conflict. A defector, inside the system for decades, now in U.S. custody, and already talking. Subscribe to our channel. Every development matters. Every hour counts. You cannot afford to miss what is happening right now. Join our subscribers who are already tracking every move. To understand why the extraction of a senior Iranian general in the direct aftermath of Khamenei's fall carries strategic weight beyond the immediate operational success, you have to understand what the collapse of the Khamenei government did to the senior leadership of Iran's military and intelligence establishment. Khamenei's death, confirmed by Iranian state broadcaster on April 10th in a brief announcement followed immediately by emergency succession broadcasts, removed the single authority figure around whom Iran's entire fragmented political and military structure was organized. The Supreme Leader's position in the Iranian constitutional system is not simply a political office. It is the organizing principle of the entire state security apparatus. The IRGC, the Ministry of Intelligence, the Quds Force, and the conventional military all derive their ultimate authority and their operational mandate from the Supreme Leader's office. When that office went vacant, with the assembly of experts convening in emergency session and the succession question unresolved in the hours and days following Khamenei's death, Iran's senior military and intelligence officials faced a personal calculus that many of them had never had to confront before. The institutional loyalty that had organized their careers suddenly had no clear target. The survival calculations that every senior figure in a collapsing authoritarian system must eventually make began immediately. The subject of the Delta Force extraction, identified in background briefings to cleared journalists as a brigadier general of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps with responsibilities in the intelligence and signals domain, had made contact with U.S. intelligence through a third country intermediary within 48 hours of Khamenei's death being confirmed. The contact was not a spontaneous decision made in the chaos of those first 48 hours. Senior IRGC officers of this rank and function do not make contact with U.S. intelligence on impulse. The contact represented a decision that had almost certainly been considered over a long period, possibly years, and that the political circumstances following Khamenei's death had converted from theoretical to operational. The collapse of the political structure that had provided both the authority and the coercive deterrent against defection changed the personal calculus for senior officers who had intelligence value to offer and compelling reasons to offer it. The intermediary through which first contact was established was an Omani business contact, reflecting the established role of Omani diplomatic and commercial networks as the primary conduit for sensitive Iran-U.S. communications throughout the conflict. The Oman channel, which had been running as the primary diplomatic back channel for the ongoing ceasefire negotiations, served simultaneously as the operational channel through which the general's initial contact was passed to U.S. intelligence officers embedded with the diplomatic mission in Muscat. The intelligence value that this extracted general carries is the dimension of the defection that changes the strategic picture beyond what any previous operational success in the campaign has achieved. A brigadier general of the IRGC with direct responsibilities in the intelligence and signals domain has access to, and carries in his memory, information about Iranian military and intelligence infrastructure that no amount of signals intelligence collection or imagery analysis can fully replicate. He knows the locations of facilities that have been deliberately concealed from satellite surveillance over years of careful operational security. He knows the precise communications protocols that allow IRGC command elements to operate below the detection threshold of U.S. signals intelligence collection. He knows the personnel, the names, the positions, the current locations of key figures in Iran's intelligence apparatus, who have never appeared in any externally collected database. The specific categories of intelligence that a defector of this profile carries include the complete organizational chart of the IRGC Intelligence Directorate as it existed at the moment of Khamenei's death, including the names and specific responsibilities of officers who have never been identified by external collection. He carries the precise locations of the IRGC's most sensitive underground command facilities, the facilities that the campaign's precision strike operations have been targeting based on external intelligence, but that have not not been definitively confirmed as destroyed. He carries the internal communications architecture that Iran's military command was actively using to maintain operational continuity through the Khamenei succession crisis. And he carries the personal networks, the informal command relationships, and trusted individual connections, through which Iran's fragmented post-Khamenei military structure was attempting to organize a coherent response. The Delta Force extraction operation itself, the mechanics of moving a senior Iranian officer from inside Iranian territory to a secure location outside the country, was an operational achievement that required months of preparation, even though the specific individual and the specific execution timing emerged only in the days following Khamenei's death. Delta Force's preparation for this type of operation, the extraction of a high-value individual from inside a denied area, is not built from scratch when the operational requirement suddenly emerges. It is maintained as a persistent capability through continuous planning, preparation, and rehearsal of the specific operational elements that any such extraction requires. Infiltration routes through Iranian territory, communications protocols that function in denied communications environments, safe house networks maintained by agency assets inside Iran, exfiltration pathways to recovery points outside Iranian borders, and the intelligence preparation of the operational environment, the persistent collection that tells the extraction team where the security threats are located and how to avoid them in real time. The specific operational plan for the April 12th extraction was built on this persistent preparation in the days following the general's initial contact. A compressed planning timeline converted the general intelligence preparation of the environment into a specific operational plan, a specific individual moving from a specific location inside Iran through a specific exfiltration route to a specific helicopter recovery point on or near the Iranian border. The security environment inside Iran in the days following Khamenei's death, the environment through which the extraction operation had to move, was simultaneously the most operationally favorable and the most unpredictably dangerous environment that Delta Force could have faced. It was favorable because the institutional coherence of Iran's internal security services had been degraded by the succession crisis. The MOIS Domestic Intelligence Service, the IRGC Intelligence Directorate, and the law enforcement forces that would normally detect and respond to an unauthorized military incursion were all managing their own internal survival calculations. Officers at every level of the security services were monitoring the political situation, uncertain about which commands from which authorities they were required to obey in the succession vacuum. This institutional distraction created operational windows that a well-prepared special operations force could exploit with confidence. It was dangerous because the unpredictability of individual actors within a collapsing institutional structure is fundamentally different from the predictability of a coherent institutional threat. Any individual security officer, motivated by personal loyalty, by fear, or by the opportunity to demonstrate value to a new authority, might take independent action that a structured threat assessment would not predict and a pre-mission intelligence picture would not anticipate. Delta Force's operational design for the April 12th extraction accounted for both dimensions simultaneously, exploiting the institutional distraction window while maintaining the operational flexibility and the immediate action contingency planning to respond to individual actor threats that pre-mission intelligence could not anticipate. The exfiltration route used by the Delta Force extraction team moved the general out of Iranian territory through a combination of ground movement and air extraction that has not been described in operational detail in any public source, and will not be described in detail here for the straightforward operational security reasons that protect both the specific methods employed and the future utility of those methods for subsequent operations that may be required. What background briefings have confirmed is that the extraction crossed Iranian territory at night using a combination of movement modes and concluded with a helicopter recovery that delivered the general to a secure facility outside Iranian territory before the Iranian security services had confirmed that he was missing from his last known location. The extraction was clean. No U.S. casualties, no Iranian casualties, no shots fired, no pursuit initiated. The fact that the extraction was complete before Iran's security services confirmed the general's absence is operationally significant in a way that goes beyond the success of this specific operation. It means that Iran's security structure, in the chaotic days following Khamenei's death, could not maintain real-time accountability of its own senior officers. The institutional coherence that would normally trigger an immediate alert and an organized pursuit response was not available. By the time Iran's security services determined that the general was not where he was supposed to be, he was beyond any reach they could bring to bear. The diplomatic implications of the extraction, and specifically of the U.S. decision to execute it in the days immediately following Khamenei's death rather than waiting for the succession situation to stabilize, are significant for the ongoing negotiation track. Iran's delegation in the Oman ceasefire negotiations had been maintaining a position that, whatever political changes were occurring at the top of the Iranian state, Iran's military and security apparatus retained its coherence, its operational continuity, and its capacity to sustain the conflict. The extraction of a senior IRGC brigadier general, intelligence confirmed, operation executed, subject in U.S. custody, directly challenges that narrative in the most operationally concrete way possible. The message that the extraction delivers to Iran's negotiating team in Muscat is specific and unambiguous. The institutional loyalty of Iran's senior military and intelligence officers is not guaranteed in the post-Khamenei environment. The security services that Iran's negotiating position presents as evidence of retained capability are experiencing defection from senior leadership. The extraction is not simply an intelligence victory for the United States. It is a direct signal about the institutional reliability of the post-Khamenei IRGC, a signal that no statement from any Iranian negotiator can fully offset. The general's debriefing, which began immediately upon his arrival at the secure facility outside Iran, and which will continue for weeks or months of systematic exploitation, will produce intelligence that changes the targeting picture for the campaign in ways that cannot be fully anticipated before the process is complete. Previous campaign targeting has been built entirely on externally collected intelligence. Signals intelligence from NSA collection, imagery analysis from NGA satellite coverage, and technical analysis of intercepted Iranian military communications. All of these sources share a fundamental limitation. They observe what Iran does not successfully conceal: the facilities, communications architectures, and personnel that Iran has successfully hidden from external collection are, by definition, invisible to these sources. The general's human intelligence carries no such limitation. He knows what was hidden precisely because he was a participant in hiding it. He participated in the selection and construction of facilities that were designed to be invisible to satellite coverage. He used the communication systems that were designed to operate below NSA collection thresholds. He worked alongside the personnel who have never appeared in any externally collected database. His debriefing will identify specific targets that external collection has never observed, facilities, personnel, and operational procedures that Iran believed were permanently secure from U.S. intelligence penetration. The targeting packages that will be built from the general's debriefing represent a category of intelligence product that the campaign has not previously had access to. The insider view of what Iran has successfully hidden rather than what it has failed to conceal. The strikes that will be executed based on this debriefing intelligence will be targeted against facilities that Iran's operational security program had successfully concealed from U.S. collection for years. These are not the targets that the campaign has already struck. These are the targets that survived the campaign's previous phases precisely because external collection could not find them. The general's knowledge ends that protection. Iran's most sensitive and most survivable infrastructure, the elements of its military and intelligence architecture that were designed to be the last resort, the backup, the hidden reserve that would survive any strike campaign, are now being systematically described by an individual who helped design and operate them. The campaign is entering a targeting phase that Iran's planners did not anticipate and could not have defended against through any operational security measure that did not extend to preventing senior officers from ever making contact with U.S. intelligence. The broader implications of the Khamenei succession crisis, not just for the extraction operation, but for the strategic trajectory of the entire conflict, are what intelligence analysts and policy planners across the government are now working to assess with urgency. The succession question in Iran: which figure or which institutional structure will consolidate the authority of the Supreme Leader's office and restore organizational coherence to the state, is the most consequential open variable of the conflict. A rapid and stable succession that restores institutional coherence to Iran's military and security services reconstitutes the organizational resistance that the Khamenei succession crisis has temporarily degraded. A prolonged succession struggle that keeps Iran's senior security leadership in personal survival mode extends the operational opportunities that the April 12th extraction exploited. The general's debriefing will contribute directly to understanding the succession dynamics, the specific individuals competing for influence, the factional alignments within the IRGC leadership, the informal power networks that will determine how quickly and in what form Iran's post-Khamenei leadership consolidates. That understanding will inform not just future targeting decisions, but the diplomatic strategy for the ongoing ceasefire negotiations, telling U.S. negotiators which Iranian counterparts have real authority and which are performing authority they do not actually hold. What the April 12th Delta Force extraction confirmed, in a single operation executed in darkness inside a country experiencing its most severe internal political crisis in decades, is both the persistent capability of U.S. Special Operations Forces to execute high-value extractions from denied areas and the intelligence opportunity that the collapse of an authoritarian system creates for exactly this type of operation. Iran's supreme leader fell. Delta Force moved within hours. The IRGC general, who had spent decades inside the system that was now collapsing, made the calculation that every senior official of a falling government eventually faces, and chose the side with the helicopter. The general is in custody. The debriefing has begun. The targets that Iran believed were invisible are being identified one by one. The strikes that follow will be executed against infrastructure that survived every previous phase of the campaign. Delta Force extracted him. Khamenei had fallen. The defector is changing everything. So what do you think? Does the extraction of a senior IRGC intelligence general in the direct aftermath of Khamenei's death represent the decisive intelligence turning point of the campaign, or does Iran's institutional depth mean that one defector, however senior, cannot fundamentally alter the strategic balance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel for continuing coverage. Thank you for choosing us.